Just touched down in AZ. Got Decker Davis, Russ's trainer here. About to head out to the stadium, and today I want to talk about the settings that I use for sports photography on my camera. It's pretty specific settings that you got to use to make sure you get the best action shots. So I'm about to head down to the stadium right now, and I'll show you along the way. We're live here. I'm your host, Daniel Mogg. So while I'm walking, I've got some time to kill, and I can talk to you guys about sports photography camera settings. And so it's tricky because the exposure triangle, which is your shutter, your aperture, and your ISO, they have to be in sync for sports photography. It's not typical what you would shoot for portraits or even street photography. So starting, you really got to have a high shutter speed. I'm usually around the, I would say 1250, 1600, 2000, say that, of a second to really, you want to create that freeze frame action. And when you're shooting on tight telephoto lenses, you don't have as much forgiveness as you would say maybe a wide angle lens. And so you really need a high shutter speed if you want to create that awesome, that still frame, that Sports Illustrated cover, really freeze the action. I made it inside. I'm just waiting for Russ to come out, and I want to talk to you guys about shutter speed. As I said, I'm generally, as I mentioned, between 1200, 1600, even if it's in daylight, 2000. I still can't say it, 2000 of a second. And I'll just show it to you. It's so much easier. And with that, you're really going to get that freeze frame, as I mentioned. So the tough part about that is, so the shutter, it's how long the exposure is to the image that you're using. And so it's that click that you hear, and the longer that the click goes, the more light is let in. So think about it as if you're blinking. If you blink real quick, I probably look like an idiot doing this, but there's not a lot of light that's going to come in. So you have to be able to make up for that light with either a faster aperture or higher ISO. Now, generally I like shooting in a 2.8 range. Most huge telephoto lens, that's the lowest stop that they go. But the issue here is that sometimes focus can be harder to nail because you really don't have much depth of field to use. So generally, the sharpest point of the lens is at 1 or 2 stops above the lowest aperture. And so say I use the 200 to 400 or 400 millimeter, I know the lowest aperture is 2.8. Now I generally, if it's not a night game, we'll shoot at the f4 x5.6. That way my pictures are a little sharper. I still get that nice kind of blurry bokeh effect, but generally when I get to shoot, it's at a nice stadium. As you can see, the lighting, all that is really great. I know some of you might be shooting either at a college or local high school, and the lighting is not always the best. So you might have to shoot more wide open. But as a rule of thumb, I'm generally shooting at the f4, f5.6 range, and for night games, always at a 2.8. The next part of the exposure triangle is that ISO. Now, ISO is kind of the artificial light that you pump into your camera. Some are better than others. I know Sony A7S is like just a low light, just beast, but there's other cameras, like I use still the 7D Mark II, which is a crop sensor, so the ISO is not great. And I generally try not to max it out over 3200. I know on the 5D, 1DX that are full frame sensors, you can bump that up a little bit more, but day games, I'm generally always shooting at either 100 or 200, whatever the lowest amount that I can get away with to kind of really nail that exposure. Now for night games, I'm going to be at 2.8. The ISO will probably be at 1600 or above with a max out of 3200 or 6400, and then somewhere in the 1250 to 1600 range on my shutter. So those are kind of my baseline settings, right? Now, environments can change, lighting can change, even CenturyLink can be tough because of the shadows, and one side of the field is really exposed and then one side is dark. So you kind of have to split the difference, because if the ball pans to the other side of the field, your image is going to be super dark. So I generally like to work off of those baseline numbers that I mentioned, and then you can kind of tweak it based on the environment, based on what's going on in the game. It might be raining, and I actually like to crank my shutter up even more because you really get those cool freeze frame images to make it, just give it more dramatic feel. Now, let's talk about autofocus. I don't even know, I'm like definitely not skilled. I don't know how they did it back in the day to mainly focus on film with football. I mean, hats off to those guys. For this, I'm probably gonna have to show you the camera a little bit about what I do, but I generally always shoot in the AI Servo Mode. I shoot on Canon, so it's just the main tracking feature that's kind of the versatile all around. And then I like using the 4 center dot right there in the middle. I don't really like the live tracking or focusing. It doesn't work well for me. This is kind of a preference for you. And then another trick I picked up from one of my photographer friends here who shoots the games with me as well, Drew McKenzie. He talking about the back button autofocus lock. So I've tried back button autofocus where you actually start the autofocusing by pressing the back button, and it didn't work too well for me. So what I do is I use the metering, the main shutter button to start the autofocus, and then if I like it there, I customize my back button to hold the autofocus so it locks on that point. So say I'm in the end zone and the grass is right in front of me. Now the action will be starting farther back on the line of scrimmage, on the 5-10 yard line, and that focus point is going to change when the ball comes toward me. So what I do is I'll pre-focus before, kind of in that end zone area. The focus will lock, so when that ball comes there, the focus doesn't change, and then hopefully I get the touchdown shot. If you have any questions about your settings, comment below. I'd love to help you, love to connect with you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you again real soon. Go Hawks.